Okay, we're not done with the Mexico elections. It's almost in an almost narco democracy, by the way. The politics have been very complex in Mexico since it started its inception. No thanks to the US government. Plus, how are we going to stop the narcos when we are the ones funding them by buying their products? Yeah. Now the progressives are in power. They demand an end to the system of violence that the right continued to aid and increase through corruption and austerity for generations. Yeah, look, you have to personally grade on a curve. That's it. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to analyze the situation, you look at the material conditions, recognize how bad things are, and then see if the people that you're electing are moving the needle in positive directions. As far as AMLO's administration goes, there is a lot of things that he ran against, like corruption, ending corruption, which is, kind of laughable. And also tackling narco violence, which again did not happen. There are understandable criticisms of like increased military brutalization. But beyond that, like I said, renationalization of oil, nationalization of lithium. These are all positive. It's funny how leftist leaders and figures in newspapers are saying this is good, but chatters are saying it's bad because their racist families said she sucks. No, I don't think so. I think that there is a understandable growing problem with respect to narco violence. AI dubbed a great Univision video of Claudia's big 3 moments in her political career.
Studying physics at UNAM, Claudia Scheinbaum joined in student movements with a leftist orientation, from which came the leaders that would create the Democratic Revolution Party that Scheinbaum later became a part of. However, politics was not her first preference. Upon finishing university, she dedicated herself to research and education. It was not until the year 2000 that a mutual friend recommended Scheinbaum to AMLO for the position of Environmental Secretary of the then Federal District due to her research on pollution. At this point in time, Claudia Scheinbaum was married to Carlos Guimas, who was governing Tlalpan. But in 2004, he became involved in a corruption scandal when he was caught on video illegally accepting hundreds of thousands of pesos. After confessing his involvement, he stepped down from his position. Journalist Elena Chavez stated it was Scheinbaum who reported her husband to AMLO, thereby gaining his trust. Journalist Arturo Ocano states that Scheinbaum resigned after this incident, but López Obrador did not accept it. Instead, she served as his spokesperson in his first presidential campaign 2 years later. Then in 2015, she was elected to govern Tlalpan, now a member of the National Regeneration Movement Party, also known as Morena, also led by AMLO. 2 years later, tragedy struck.
Chad is literally just being misogynistic. No, Sheltered Rosebud, what the fuck are you talking about? If anything, they don't even give a shit about her or her gender. They care that she is a continuation of AMLO. Please read this without the radfem brain rot that you have. What the fuck are you saying? This has nothing to do with her being a woman. What are we talking about? If anything, this community loves Lula a lot, but we had some of those same issues here during his government growth, a lot of drug factions, increased violence against the black community, increased power of the armed forces, etc. Because it is a positive for women, at least give her the time to prove herself before you jump down her throat. Yeah, again, it doesn't matter. Most people's criticisms in this community literally have nothing to do with her being a woman at all. Okay? The country Mexico is as divided as the U.S. This is our Biden versus Trump. People support AMLO are called chairos, and the stereotypes as poor people, uneducated. The people against AMLO are called fifi. Stereotypes as white, middle class, or upper middle, out of touch with Mexico. Chacha's biased against her because she's Mexican. Yeah. Look, you cannot deny one thing, and that is that AMLO's party is profoundly popular. I mean, you look at the elections, and it's like, what are we talking about here? The popularity is unimaginable in comparison to like American metrics. So is Modi's though. Yeah, it's a little bit different, don't you think? Like, unless you're considering AMLO's party to be a fascist one that is running on a platform of fascism. Anyway, I spoke to some Morena members this past weekend. Shout out to Martha Garcia. Unfortunately, nationalization of minerals, especially lithium, won't happen until the next 50 years. Reason because the previous administration gave us, both the U.S. and Canada, a contract of those resources for 100 years. AMLO managed to cut that contract in half.
With Claudia, I'm excited because I hope that she could continue to push the kind of concessions and development of Mexico in a left-wing direction. She's going to be aligned with, with other left-wing politicians in Latin America, and that's extremely important for countering the U.S.'s malign influence. He believed in elves, started high-speed rail in Mexico, nationalized oil again, made the peso the strongest it's ever been. Oh yeah, he's definitely, and the reality is that, like, she won with over 60% of the vote. Like, this is not, like, if you're, like, looking at her and going, she's trading with the United States of America? Wow, that's terrible. It's like, what the fuck? This is our southern neighbor. Of course they're going to trade with us. Like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? What were some of her? Let's look at her platform a little bit. I think. Let's see what our white Mexicans are writing. Mexico's next president will have to boost tax take to pay for social programs. Here's Hasan.
But I think that's a reality that most Mexicans do recognize. Now this covered the president.
On December 1st, Mexico will get a new president. Former mayor of Mexico City.
Oh, this is old shit, guys. This is old stuff. I don't want anything. I don't need to do a whole retrospective on AMLO. It's incredible how leftists finally decided to make their own party in Mexico, and now it's absolutely smashing the vote. The president leaving power with 80% of approval. Imagine if we did the same. So true, bestie. Very smart post. She is an academic, Nobel Peace Prize winner, climate scientist, pro-Palestinian Jew, feminist, and AMLO's protege. I know. But have you considered that she hasn't waved the magic communism wand? Have you considered she hasn't waved the communism wand? I don't think you should get too excited. I think you should criticize. After winning investors' confidence with tight spending policies for most of his term, leftist Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador loosened the purse strings in his final year in office to finish the flagship infrastructure project and cover a surge in welfare progress for Mexico's poor. That boosted the deficit to 5.9% of gross domestic product in 2024 from 4.3% in prior years. Those moves will force Sheinbaum's incoming administration to either hold the line on spending or risk a hit to Mexico's creditworthiness. Oh, yeah? Lopez Obrador's finance minister, Rogelio Ramirez de la O, is set to join Sheinbaum's cabinet for some time. It gives us a peace of mind in terms of the economy that will smooth the transition, the outgoing president said. The solution for Latin America's second largest economy, according to economists, analysts, and former top government officials, is some sort of tax overhaul which will boost government revenues, despite Mexico's next leader saying she has no plan to raise taxes. She promised to continue Republican austerity, maintain financial and fiscal discipline, and respect the autonomy of the Bank of Mexico. Despite these pledges, the election sent shockwaves through the market as the ruling Morena Party and its coalition partners look primed for a congressional supermajority, which would make constitutional change easier and diminish checks and balances. Guys, they're so popular that it means that there won't be obstruction. Oh no! So popular that it means that there won't be obstruction. Oh no! I like that one Twitter guy who tried to dissuade you from liking her AMLO and their party as having former PRI members and such, as if it was possible to settle into power with at least some people from the corrupt old power that was on top for 80 years. Yeah, but if you talk to those same guys about Nazis in Germany, they're like, well, what do you mean? Or Nazis working in NATO, they're like, well, what do you mean? I mean, obviously there were going to be some Nazis. And then you're talking about like Mexican politics, like it's unacceptable. Some bills are perceived as leading to institutional erosion and weakening the current checks and balances, and several are not viewed as market friendly. With full control of the House and for practical purposes likely the Senate as well, the probability that a significant part of this broad agenda is approved increased significantly, said Alberto Ramos, chief Latin American economist at Goldman Sachs. Yeah, guys, when I want my political analysis, I go to Goldman Sachs. Ever since Fetterman, you don't believe anymore. Claudia is the real deal. I think she's gonna be a good. I'd love to see Mexico. Like, if Mexico could develop relatively quickly, that would be a major counterbalance of the United States. Like, if Mexico and Brazil continue their upward rise with left-wing presidents, the United States of America will be rapidly contained within its own hemisphere. Like, that is something that we need to be rooting for and we need to be promoting, is the rise of Brazil and the rise of Mexico. Because the US is way too splashing around all across the world and making a mess of it. So the more we can develop Latin America as a counterbalance, the better. No fiscal reform in sight. Sheinbaum, who will take office as Mexico's first woman president in October, has said she will look to cut red tape and improve efficiency of tax collection at customs. I'm not thinking about a deep tax reform. I think there's still many opportunities for tax collection, which is actually right. It's, you know, in Mexico, the problem isn't the tax rates, it's the tax compliance. So going and just enforcing existing tax law and getting more money from white people who are dodging taxes is absolutely the way that you could raise revenue without further raising the rates. I got to speak with her at an event in Denver last year. She's the real deal. Got to speak with her for about 5 minutes. She's smart and had a great understanding from socioeconomic policy and public safety. I'm hopeful for Mexico. Imagine if Mexico took advantage of cheap Chinese solar panels and EVs in the vast deserts they have. I mean, I think that's actually what they're going to do. I think what they're going to do is, if I were Sheinbaum, I would have China investing in manufacturing plants in Mexico, but I would also unionize those plants, because Mexico has the opportunity to profit from the investment that China has to make into Mexico to get access to the American market. So I'd have it be a Chinese-Mexican joint venture to get access to the U.S. market through NAFTA. And I would use Chinese money, like China used American money to develop itself, use Chinese money to develop your domestic industrial base. And yeah, sure, the cars might be slightly more expensive if they're, assembled in Mexico, but they're still going to be way cheaper than American crap. I think more people are worried about the increase in crime. Well, the increase in crime is due to the American consumption of hard drugs. Like, where do you think the money for crime comes from in Mexico? Where do you think these cartels, and who do you think these cartels work with? The idea of tax reform is a debate we should have, said political analyst Fernando Dworak. Everyone is talking about what they're going to do, but nobody mentions how they're going to pay for it. It's always the same. I'm not convinced she's a leftist, I'm going to be honest. I just checked her Twitter. She never tweeted about a general strike a week from the date, or asked Twitch streamers to stop streaming it for a day to fight Amazon. Has she even told poor people in her cities to boycott Coke Zero? Yeah. Well, I believed in her, but then, what a lib. Base. And yeah, sure, the cars might be slightly more expensive if they're, assembled in Mexico, but they're still going to be way cheaper than American crap. I think more people are worried about the increase in crime. Well, the increase in crime is due to the American consumption of hard drugs. Like, where do you think the money for crime comes from in Mexico? Where do you think these cartels, and who do you think these cartels work with? The idea of tax reform is a debate we should have, said political analysis Fernando Dworak. Everyone is talking about what they're going to do, but nobody mentions how they're going to pay for it. It's always the same. I'm not convinced she's a leftist, I'm going to be honest. I just checked her Twitter. She never tweeted about a general strike a week from the date or asked Twitch streamers to stop streaming it for a day to fight Amazon. Has she even told poor people in her cities to boycott Coke Zero? Yeah.
Customs. The military is building a refinery. The military is building a train, runs its own commercial airline. So there has been a lot of elements of increased participation of the military in which Claudia Sheinbaum will have to make a position. Claudia Sheinbaum is the candidate of the current president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who has been in power for over 5.5 years. Administrations in Mexico.
Mexico sucks in that they only let the president be president for one term for 6 years. I hate that. I hate that. They really need to eliminate that. If you have a 2/3 majority, I would eliminate the term limit. It's fucking stupid. It's actually stupid. It's actually stupid. Like, if AMLO has 80% approval, he should be allowed to run for president again. It's idiotic to go, well, the Constitution doesn't want you to have the president you like. That's dumb.
Are 6 years.
It's good to limit the neolibs, though. That's not, it's never, no, you're wrong. Sorry, term limits are bad. All right, I'm going to explain to you exactly why term limits are bad. Who is the president who was elected the most times in American history? FDR, correct. Everybody passed 6th grade. Who is the president that expanded the social welfare state in America the most? Well, would you look at that? After which president did they enact the term limits? This is something that leftists in America constantly do, which is like, there's some facially neutral restriction that's obviously designed against the left, and they conjure in their mind some way it could help the left when it manifestly helps the right. I'll give you another example. I don't like Obama. Personally, I think Obama is a centrist piece of shit. Would Obama have beaten Trump head to head? Would a 3rd term of Obama have been better than 1 term of Trump? I rest my case. Like, even if I don't like Obama, he very likely would have beaten Trump. He would have replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg with another liberal. And then it's just a waiting game for one of these conservative freaks to have died or retired, like Kennedy did. It's very likely they would have just given up and retired, and that would have allowed the Supreme Court to flip 5-4 liberal for the first time since the 60s. Do you have to be for term limits in the horseshit Supreme Court? That's different because it's not an elected office. If an office is not elected, I'm okay with term limits because that person doesn't have democratic legitimacy. Personally, I think the Supreme Court should I think every president should get a certain number of Supreme Court judges. I think it should just be, if you get elected, you get a certain number of Supreme Court judges. And that should just be that. But, like, every president gets 2 or something. Like, The idea that Obama got 2 in 8 years and Trump got 3 in 4 years, that's fucking stupid. Term limits don't limit the center or right because their people are puppets for larger interest groups. Exactly. Well, here's how I would put it. When you create term limits and you move power away from elected politicians, the power doesn't go away. It just accumulates somewhere else in some other institution. So if you remove the power from the politicians, if the politicians are constantly being cycled out and thrown out of office by a term limit, where's that power going? It's going into the hands of lobbyists. It's going into party apparatchiks. It's going to places that are not vulnerable to democratic correction. You are creating a deep state that is immune to being voted against. And that's exactly why people support term limits, because they understand it's an anti-democratic reform. Because on its face, somebody serving for 5 terms doesn't matter if the elections are legit. It just means the voters like the person. I'll give you another example. Would you fire someone as chief of surgery because they had 20 years experience? Would you go, we should have term limits on the chief of surgery at my hospital? Nobody should be chief of surgery for longer than 5 years or 8 years. Huh? What? Doesn't make any sense. You want people to have jobs that based on their demonstrated competence. And that is especially true of something like president. I just checked Reddit's response on the Mexican president, and holy hell, it's a shithole. Reddit is now botted to hell. Reddit is now a CIA bot fest. Like, it legitimately is. It really started in 2020 with the elections. Ukraine's F-16s can strike inside Russia, NATO ally confirms. Guess what's going to happen to those F-16s? They'll get shot down. F-16s are shit planes. I'm about to step on some toes of people that like watching movies, but the F-16 sucks. It is a short-ranged, slow, single-engine plane with a large radar signature, low capability. It's a shit plane. It sucks. It's actually garbage. And when you put weapons on it, it's even less capable. When it's stripped clean and it's doing acrobatics at an airfield, yeah, it looks cool. But when it's actually a combat, it's dog shit. So send F-16s into Russia to get shot down. Intelligent. On the one hand, it's good to have our first female president. On the other hand, it makes no difference since she's just an extension of the current one. 3 cheers for the cartel lady. Hip hip hooray. Now, guys, Lopez Obrador has an 80% approval rating. How come the top vote in Reddit is an anti? This is insane. This is an extremely marginal opinion in Mexico. Very progressive from cartels to install female president. The cartels is the foundation of their power. This is just conspiracy theories. So far, every comment is cartels. She would have begun against the Mayan trade because of all the ecological disaster it did. So in other words, Mexico shouldn't develop its infrastructure because of some lib consultant bullshit. Guys, what do you think hurts Mexico's environment more? Not developing high-speed rail or the disaster, the damage that construction of a single train line does? If you think it's a single train line, you may have Reddit brain. Terminal Reddit brain. Terminal Reddit brain. Chad, I should probably tell you this, getting started early, that I'm an old school leftist, and I am anti-green. Basically, if I see greens in opposition to some project that's not specifically like a fossil fuel project, I ignore them because they're wrong. So, yeah. 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 They say this because AMLO was perceived as being gentle on the cartels for not continuing the total war with them that only cost more lives. There wasn't a total war. That is television. That's television. That was television. The Minister of Security was working for the cartels under the Conservative Party. You understand that, right? Like the previous Conservative Party, they were pretending to fight the cartels. They were actually getting bribes and they were in bed with the cartel. Like the whole thing you saw on TV, like, oh, total war. That wasn't happening, right? Use your fucking head. The head of the Ministry of Security under the last conservative government is in federal prison in America for being the guy in charge of the Mexican police is now in prison in America for being bribed and connected to Sinaloa cartel. There wasn't a total war. That was made up. Horace Limestone. This is so. It's very fun. Okay, chat. I want to say something to you, which is there's a certain type of Luddite, anti-development leftist who thinks they're helping people by denying them basic infrastructure, and the idea that a rail line is going to do ecological damage compared to the existing fossil fuel transit is just, I want to say, more incoherent than anything could ever possibly be. It's just objectively wrong. She's pro-Palestine, man. All right, somebody says, show the majority report. Subreddit. Hold on. Yeah, let's keep watching this.
There's no re-election. So she is a physicist and she has a PhD, and she was a former mayor of Mexico City.
How did she get from science to politics?
Well, she started by being a social leader in the National University of Mexico, a student leader. Then she passed on to local government, close to Andres Manuel López Obrador, in the Ministry of Environment when Andres Manuel was the head of Mexico City. And then since there, she became a powerful force within Morena, the president's party. She became the mayor of Mexico City. And from there, she was selected by the president as the candidate for his movement for this presidential election.
This is quite an extraordinary moment, isn't it, in Mexico's political history for a woman to be elected?
Yeah, definitely. This is the first time in history that a woman is elected for president of Mexico. Women were granted the right to vote 71 years ago. So, I was also the first deputy minister of finance.
Is it so hard to imagine that there's a lot of animosity for Scheinbaum because, you know, she's a woman? Lots of memes coming from Mexico are about women not being able to govern and stuff with no valid criticism. I mean, the two criticisms, the biggest criticism you're going to see is she's in the cartels, because that's the thing that is obviously a major issue within Mexico. But what is the real cause of the cartels? Is it because the Mexican president isn't a warmonger enough? If only Mexico's president was more of a warmonger, that would solve the cartels. Does anyone here think that? I mean, do even the people that say cartels think that? It's ridiculous.
Back in 2016. So it has been something that has been moving forward in the right direction, but it's been a struggle and a fight by those very public figures and the anonymous figures in history and in generations that have allowed for a woman president to be today, to become the president of Mexico.
Yeah, I never want to over-focus on the gender of a politician because it can demean their ability as a politician. There's no need for us to say, this is a female politician, this is a male politician. There shouldn't be. But actually, is there something about the violence towards women in Mexico that has made a difference? I mean, this was an election fought between two female candidates. So is there something that we might, do to understand about Mexico, as well as the fact that this is a very intelligent politician who, is completely capable of running the country?
Agree with you, Fee, and I feel exactly the same way. But it tells a lot that the two finalists, one was a physicist, the other was an engineer, both women. So this tells a lot about the evolution of the Mexican society and the evolution and achievements of the struggle in relation to equality. But moreover, this is a very important moment to be president of Mexico, and we have very relevant challenges. For instance, defining the democratic foundations of the country, the relation with the checks and balances, most importantly, an independent judiciary, and also the fact that Mexico has been having a significant weight of the military over the past 5 years.
All right, let's move on. Mexico's presidential candidates' campaign platforms in comparison. I have family that still lives in the south of Mexico. They love the mine train project because during its construction, it will revitalize the local economy in hundreds of little towns surrounding the train tracks. All of a sudden, there was a huge influx of workers that needed a place to stay and food to eat. The only degrowth adjacent that should occur is complete halting of wasting resources for the sake of making garbage meant to last no time at all. Things should last years. Oh, I agree with you. I mean, listen, I don't think that there's no insights to be made from kind of green mentalities at all. I think there should be. But I don't trust the liberal Greens. Liberal Greens are, at the end of the day, anti-human neoliberals. And they gesture toward environmental pressure, preservation because it doesn't involve paying poors to live. Okay, so here's her platform. Strengthen social spending and increase investment in existing social programs to address poverty. Reduce multi-dimensional poverty rate to below 2%. Reform the Constitution to guarantee the right to a pension for those 65 plus. Create a national agency for entrepreneurship, innovation, and productivity. Wow. How did she lose, chat? Implement reform to make Republican austerity an official state policy. Continue policy of not using presidential plane. No exorbitantly high salaries for government officials. No pension for former presidents. I don't agree with this. This is a little bit weird. Personally, I think that you should Use your presidential plane. You're the president of Mexico. It's okay to have a plane. Maintain the autonomy of Banco de Mexico. Collaborate with all levels of government to improve tax collection process, including bans on tax forgiveness and efforts to address tax evasion. Expect a significant reduction in Mexico's debt by 2030 and strategic use of resources to improve infrastructure and support the vulnerable. Okay, this strengthened social spending doesn't... There's not enough there. So the conservative wanted to spend money on highways. Develop industrial corridors to attract capital investment. Implement a strategy for national railroad system for both freight and passengers. Invest in maintenance and expansion of Mexico's highway system and expand rail routes. Accelerate the transition to electromobility with electric systems of public transportation, especially Mexico's largest cities. Modernization, maintenance, and application of the country's ports. Utilize secure, intelligent port software to improve port operations. Secure financing and expand routes for Mexicana de Aviación. Expand several airports around the country. I can't speak Spanish, chat. Foster collaboration between business owners. Review infrastructure projects to reassess. In other words, cancel a bunch. Transform infrastructure planning into a multilateral and multi-step decision-making process. Choke everything with a million veto points. No wonder she lost horrifyingly bad. The conservative would have kept Mexico poor as fuck. Strengthen the Secretary of Security and Citizen Protection, especially in terms of intelligence gathering, investigation, facilitate its collaboration with the National Guard and Attorney General's office. Categorize extortion as a felony. Oh, why the fuck isn't it a felony already? Double the size of the National Guard. Implement a national auditing system. Let me see if audits are up at the conservative side. Yeah, I don't see that. It's almost like this is the corruption party. Well, how did they lose? Elect via popular vote magistrates and officials responsible for Mexico's electoral process. Uh-oh. Less CIA action. Uh-oh. God, they're awesome. The more I look into this, the more leftist and more I'm happy. The one thing that makes them really good is that they like to seize power. This is the one thing that I really appreciate. This is why they're winners. Because they don't allow lib concerned trolls to let them slit their own throats. They're like, yeah, the electoral system is incredibly biased against us. We're going to go ahead and fix that. They don't go, oh, but what if we attack the Supreme Court? The legitimacy of the Supreme Court will be declining. It's like, well, maybe it should be declining if it's corrupt. Make human right to water a legal priority and recognize water as a strategic resource. Promote policy of energy federalism. So each state contributes to national energy policy while also developing. This is horrifyingly terrible. Work to guarantee access to water, chat. How did she lose? Yeah, that's it. That's it. Strategically define relationship with China. Uh-oh. So this was the CIA candidate, 100%. As 10 presidential summits, especially G20. Reinforce communication, coordination, and collaboration with the U.S. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are they mad the CIA candidate lost? Oh, no. Oh, the CIA candidate lost. Oh. Look at the very last one. Okay. I closed it early. Yeah. Strategically define relationship with China. Yeah, in other words, become I'll be the American puppet. That's the conservative candidate. How did she lose so horrifyingly badly? Maybe because her policies suck. It's so funny. People legitimately believe if you just cut taxes and you don't have any infrastructure development in your country, you're somehow going to become rich. Like if you just let the free market thrive, your country will be rich. Can you give me an example where that happened? No, I can't. That never happened. So I'm pretty excited about that.